internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Our days get a little complex sometimes. Often so many things make sense, yet so many do not. We are being intentional about giving prominence to the big stories in order to clarify and enlighten. Lead Story explains who, what, when, where, why, and how. Lead Story with George Davis, weekdays at 6:30 p.m. on CVM TV.
From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at noon for Friday, January 17, 2025. I'm Ramon Gordon. Thank you so much for joining us. The Area 1 Police Division has stepped up spot checks in Hanover and Westmoreland to reduce road fatalities. In partnership with the Transport Authority, operations target hotspots where many fatalities occurred last year. Meanwhile, Councillor candidate Abigail Malcolm is urging motorists to obey the road code.
I'm appealing to motorists, cut your speed limit, especially in areas that are not properly lit at night. I propose a dual approach, reducing speed limits on poor lit roads and increase vigilance in dark spots at night. We recently had a bike accident on the Key Main Road which took the life of a young man. And we know that the roads are not good in terms of pothole and all of that, so let us obey the speed limit.
The Education Transformation Oversight Committee, ETOC, is advancing its recommendation to improve national education. They're also urging the government to implement policies on education performance and incentives.
A policy decision is required by the government to make education the centerpiece of national development. And it's not just enough to say that there is a policy. You will have to align government actions with that stated objective. It's going to require the government to put its money where its mouth is. We can follow the Singapore model where matriculation standards to enter a teaching college is extremely high. That's something that we must do for standards in education to be raised. But you're going to have to improve the incentive regime in a material way. You're going to have to improve the performance management regime for teachers in a material way. The accountability measures governing the teaching profession will need to be changed radically for us to begin to see significant movement in educational outcomes.
And on CVM's lead story, Spanish Town Mayor Norman Scott accused the Auditor General of using incomplete information in its latest audit. Scott claims the flawed process could impact the accuracy of the financial assessments.
One of the issues that I find we need to have more persons with capacity building in the municipalities. So that is a shortfall, and that is something that needs to be looked at in order to prevent going further having these kinds of discrepancies. Now, after the Auditor General...
Farmers in St. Catherine are expressing frustration over the condition of their roads and the management of SCJ Holdings. They say promises for road repairs have not been kept and are now calling on government ministers to step in. Here's more from Raheem White.
Farmers are alleging that FCJ Holdings has failed to properly execute road repairs, leaving the road vulnerable to further damage due to the absence of drainage. Farmer and resident Samuel King says the minister promised action months ago, but is yet to deliver.
We are trying to get the minister to come here once again. He have repeatedly told the country that he will be coming from March to April. We haven't seen him as yet.
King claims that while the roads were marled, the lack of drainage has created significant problems for farmers who irrigate their crops. He explains that water continues to flow onto the road, threatening the work already done.
Management at SCJ, they have marred the road, but they have not cut out any drain. So even if we do not have a shower of rain, the fact that we irrigate, the irrigation water will come over on the road because NIC, they are not fixing the dilapidated condition. So that water will come on the road that they're marred. So if there's no drains, eventually the road that they're just marred will be mashed up same way. So
King also alleged that SCJ's project manager has mismanaged the repairs and shown bias by prioritizing sections of the road that benefit specific leaseholders.
Well, that when I say that is a part of the personal sabotage, the person who they claim that they are leasing the roads to that section, his boundary starts there and ends down by the fish pond. So if it even is, they are going to mark the road to that person who has lease. This is not where the final boundary is, so that must be some type of sabotage.
With concerns mounting, King is appealing to the Ministers of Agriculture and Transport to intervene and resolve the issues which he says have been ongoing for far too long.
It cannot be that farmers who are farming, real farmers here in Heartland, this is the condition the management of SCJ have subjected us to. While the so-called false farmers, they have gotten pretty roads and we have gotten Highway 6000 without drains.
Raheem White for CVM News.
Inconsistent garbage collection remains a problem in parts of the country, including an area locally called Darkest in St. Elizabeth. A resident shares their frustrations with the ongoing challenges.
This garbage pile-up shouldn't be here. Sometimes it takes them 3 weeks, months to remove it. And it's very embarrassing for we as residents in that area. Yeah, everybody from everywhere just come dump them garbage and pile it up and they don't move it for weeks, months.
So, I mean, it seems that there's nowhere else to dump garbage. Where you dump your garbage? Not putting it on the spot, but where you dump
Sometimes the garbage truck come around and then we burn. Sometimes, most time we burn the garbage.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes the garbage truck come around. Everybody from the region, all the village around the area, everybody just come dump them garbage out out here.
Cardiovascular diseases remain Jamaica's top killer, but the island has fewer than 20 cardiologists. Chairman of the Heart Institute, Ernesto Madu, is calling for a specialized training program to address the shortage. News at Noon continues in a moment.
What do these people know that you don't know? They understand how listing on the Jamaica Stock Exchange can improve the profitability of their company. They know the potential for increasing the company's capital, the governance requirements, the tax responsibilities, the ownership implications, and the procedures for listing. They have the knowledge to make an informed decision on whether or not to go public. Knowledge is power. If you don't know, you can't act. Begin a conversation with the Jamaica Stock Exchange to gain the information you need to make a decision.
I'm Stafford Burrows.
I'm Marilyn Burrows.
My name is Hugh Graham.
I'm John Mafood.
My name is Derek Cottrell, and we are listed on the Jamaica Junior Stock Exchange.
Give us a call today at 876-967-3271 to begin your transformation through conversation. We want to see your company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Discover and develop spiritual gift for evangelism. Study to preach and pray with power and boldness at Deeper Life Bible School. No age limits, no CXC required. Attend classes once per week. Graduation at the end of your studies. 8 locations across the island. Register now for the new semester.
Attending Deeper Life School of Evangelism was one of the best things that happened in my life.
CVM TV and live Jamaica Premier League action on a Monday night. A match made in heaven. We call it Monday Match Night. Catch all the hard-pounding JPL Monday night action from now until the end of the season on CVM TV's Monday Match Night. Matchday Mondays at 7:45 p.m. with rebroadcast Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Nothing else can quite match up. Monday Match Night, powered by Sunshine Snacks and ABC Electrical.
Welcome back. It's time for our discussion segment. Here, grooming and dress policies in schools continue to spark debate in Jamaica. The Education Ministry recently announced a draft of a new grooming policy which aims to promote inclusivity. To discuss the balance between maintaining students' identity and holding school policies, we're joined by Mark Smith, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm well, thank you so much. Now, let's start our conversation by setting a bit of context for our viewers. There was a video online of a young man, a local high school. He was prevented from going to school, purportedly because of his hair. Subsequent to that, there was another video of a young lady whose uniform was supposed to be, I think it was 4 inches above the knee. It was probably half an inch shorter, and the school barred her from entering. So, to start a conversation, I must ask, should students be barred from schools due to hairstyles or other grooming infractions, or is there perhaps another way to deal with these issues?
Well, thank you. I want to start first by saying that this seems to be an issue that we have to be constantly dealing with, and I hope that the new policy will provide further guidelines that can allow us to get beyond this, because there are a multiplicity of other issues that are so important in order to move the conversation of education forward in this country, and we seem to habitually get caught up with something what I consider a minor issue in the grand scheme of things. Now, as it relates to those particular cases, there might be more going on there, and so I don't want to speak specifically to it, but speaking in broader terms about what I consider the need for us to have policies that support efficient and effective operation of schools. There must be standards. So let's just establish that first and foremost. There must be standards that we establish. We have them in our business places. We have them in our churches. We have them in our schools. And so we have to, as a community, decide what are the best set of rules and standards to support the holistic development of children. Certainly. I believe, in principle, that the policy put forward, or the policy framework put forward by the Ministry of Education, really provides the type of scope necessary that creates an inclusive enough operation or operationalization of policy development that is unique to each school. So what you're going to find is that it is really the consultative process which is called upon by the members of the school community, and that should set the tone for what is admissible and what is not. That being said, we want to move towards ensuring that all children are included in the process of education.
Certainly. You said that this has been a persistent issue, yes? Should the ministry perhaps consider being more, bullish on inclusion and access to education? Because like you said, we've left it up to schools to make the determinations as to whether or not this rule or that rule is appropriate for administration, but it has caused some students to be missing out classes. So should the ministry outline very clearly and give a directive even to say this is what should obtain?
All right, this is the challenge we find. In Jamaica, we don't lack rules and regulation. What we tend to lack are enforcement. And that is part of the challenge that we face. Now, I'm not arguing for whether or not people are allowed to wear locks or not, or to cut their hair high or low. I'm not arguing that, because I think that conversation is best had by the members of the respective school communities, right? So that process is not only the principal or the administrator of the school. It involves the PTA representative. It's really a board issue. And so the boards have to be more active in this process. What is clear is that we have to have standards, right? And so where it is that we have children that are not complying, I want to find out what is causing this lack of compliance, and are there underlying issues that need to be addressed. And so I think it's a lot more nuanced a problem. And having, for instance, a situation in which you say no child can be prevented from entering a school campus irrespective of how they are groomed. Now, again, I'm not speaking to a specific case.
Certainly.
And I think each case has to be dealt with to ensure that we have compliance with laws while at the same time ensuring that children are able to access education.
Very well. Now, like you mentioned earlier, the Education Ministry recently announced the draft of the grooming policy and stated that it would invite consultations to finalize it. Now, what balance should we be striking, and what even should be the considerations that we're making?
One, we have to understand that, when we are teaching children in schools, we're not just teaching them to pass math and English and to do well in sciences. We're also teaching them the values, structures and systems of discipline, what we call social cohesion, the fundamentals of social cohesion. And you're going to need people, as they move into the working world, and employers talk about this all the time, to be able to comply with rules and regulations. Now, I'm not saying that is specific to hairstyle. What I'm saying is that there must be some compliance with some regulatory framework that you have within the respective organizations. What we have to do is ensure that we have a robust enough dialogue that permits the space for schools to still have a sense of identity as to what are the values for that respective school. And I think the existing framework that we're talking through, policy framework, provides that scope. But it is for the respective groups to get involved. So we're talking about the Parent Teachers Association. We're talking about places like the student representative groups, which is Student Council President on the respective schools, and to talk through the nuances of that at a school level. It is very hard for us to focus on just having an open policy where teachers and principals cannot hold students accountable for the way in which they groom themselves. Because when they come into the working world, I'm expecting you to come to the work with your hair combed. And if we're going to say that children can do anything, then that would mean the same for teachers. And I don't want to hear people talking about teachers can show up any which way. No, we're expecting that you come presenting yourself, for instance, as a professional. And you're holding teachers accountable, but we can't hold students accountable. Under the regulation, I can send home a teacher who's not properly attired for school and ask them to return properly attired in accordance with our policy that we have that outlines even, for instance, how it is that their clothes, what type of clothes they have on, what type of hairstyles they have. That is that. So we need to rectify those things on the other side, because we can't have a case in which it's a free-for-all for students, but the adults, both in the general society as well as within our schools, are beholden to very precise rules and execution of precise rules, because there's a misalignment there. When these children enter the working world, many private sector, individuals will tell you that they're having challenges in terms of how it is that they present to their staff. So we have to have this very open discussion, understanding also about this awakening of Black culture and Black identity and what that really means.
What's the sentiment from your stakeholders, teachers, parents? What are you hearing on the ground? Because like we've already established, this is not a new conversation. It's been going on forever. So what are they saying now that the debate has seemingly been renewed?
It's a very divisive issue. And so you have those individuals who believe that, if a child doesn't want to comb their hair and show up at school, what's the problem? They see people in the NBA, they see many of these athletes, they see people who are entertainers doing this type of thing. And so what's the problem? There are some corporate entities that are very liberal with their policies. And the question is, we have to find the type of consultative process. And I think that is what the minister spoke to yesterday. I think that is what the policy is about. Finding a consultative approach, because norms change over time.
Certainly.
And that's a reality. They're not cast in concrete. And so we need to figure out as a society, are we there? We want a much more liberal society. And that is a conversation. I think that will be ongoing. And democracy is a messy business. And we're going to have rival views. And what we need to do is to ensure all views can contend.
Certainly. Like you've said, the policy is a work in progress. Let's talk short term. Should we be barring students from schools for grooming infractions? What say you, Sir President, explicitly to that question?
I wish it was a yes or a no. Sometimes their questions are a little more nuanced. So the question is, what happens when a student refuses to comply with the existing policy?
Nice.
And I'll use Monterey College as an example. I have said to my student council that, listen, I am open to a more liberal approach as long as we are able to build the type of support. So there was a time when Monroe College, you were required to cut your hair, at the same height. And I've said, student council presidents have come to me and said, put a proposal to the board. Let us work it through. My job is to enforce what the rules of the institution are. And so you don't want a case in which students are wearing their pants down below their bottom and saying that that is how they want to express themselves. We understand religious, and I think the Supreme Court is quite clear on religious rights of individuals in our Constitution.
Certainly.
But when it gets into your sense of self-expression, well, schools have a structure, and I think we need to respect that, because when they get into the army, they get into the police force, where there are grooming policies in terms of how you carry yourself, the expectations, we have to prepare students